Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Pros Pro Bono Meets the Client. And today it's a great honor to have with us Paweł Vargan, who comes from Poland. You wouldn't think so from his accent, sounds like a native speaker. But anyway, he's here to represent the work of the Progressive International, with whom we've been working now quite closely over the past few months. So, welcome, Paweł.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Why don't you begin by telling us a little bit about what is the work and the mission of the Progressive International and what you try to do in the world?
Well, let me maybe take a step back a little bit. I'm sure everyone watching this will have noticed how certain things in the world might have gotten worse or more challenging, right? There are questions of climate change that are getting worse each year, and this summer is set to reach record temperatures. There are problems with cost of living, with rising energy prices. In some countries, some people might say there are problems with the very way that the democracy works and the kinds of political forces that are coming to power now. And I think there are ways in which we can make sense of those changes. And there are ways in which we can work against some of those changes towards building what might look like a more just and a more ecological society. And the ideas or the ideas that kind of show us how to pursue a more just direction exist in the world, but we often don't have access to them. And so one of the main ideas behind our organization is that by connecting different groups in different countries, different parts of the world, in particular across the global north and global south axis, where there really isn't enough dialogue, by connecting these groups, we can get a better sense of the kind of predicament we're in, of the ways in which these different crises and these different issues interrelate across borders. And hopefully by creating dialogue and creating opportunities for different kinds of exchange, we can start to develop shared solutions and maybe shared ideas for what a different world might look like. I think it's really important now that we've reached this kind of really what feels like the beginning of a series of unending crises, that we come together and start to think critically about where we need to go from here.
Okay, so we have a whole section of our work which we call thought and opinion, and obviously your work fits into that. What do you think is the impact of spreading ideas as opposed to, let's say, going in and delivering aid, delivering food, delivering health, that kind of thing?
Aid is necessarily a temporary thing. And if you look at the way that aid emerged historically, it always emerged in countries that for one reason or another were denied their sovereignty. So instead of allowing a country to use its own resources to benefit its people, those resources would be taken out from those countries, usually by corporations in the global north, and instead aid would be offered, kind of as compensation, but really as kind of moral whitewashing. There was a great report published, I think, by the French Development Agency itself, rather a kind of a short post that looked at this question, and it showed that for every dollar that is given in foreign aid by France to certain countries in Africa, France extracts $3 in interest on loans, in underpaying for resources. So there's a real underlying question of justice here, that something like aid or just humanitarian support, while it might be important in the short term to alleviate immediate needs and immediate suffering, doesn't really address the fundamental question. It doesn't really get to the heart of the issue. And so speaking to people who are actually on the ground, speaking to people who are affected by these issues, studying the mechanisms that generate these situations is important to get a more well-rounded perspective of the overall context and, again, of the underlying drivers of some of these injustices that we have.
So where do you start? There are so many conflict areas, there are so many shortages, so many zones of injustice throughout the world. How do you manage to get a handle on all of this and bring it together into one publication, one platform?
Well, our life is made a little bit easier by the fact that we are a membership organization. So our organization itself is made up of other different kinds of organizations, whether they're trade unions or research organizations or other kinds of groups that deal with these questions. And our mandate is to support them. So, of course, we don't have coverage over the entire planet. We're a fairly young organization. We've been around for a little bit over 3 years, or maybe, yeah, a little bit over 3 years. But it is, of course, difficult, right, when there are so many causes and so many people in need to decide on what the focus is going to be. And I suppose one way to do that is to find, in our case, where is the intersection between something that one of our member organizations might need support with, and another issue in a different country that intersects with that first issue in ways that would allow us to build connections between them, right? So a very, very clear example might be the struggle against climate change, which in large parts of the global south is related very intimately with the struggle for indigenous rights and the struggle especially for land rights. So you have corporations that literally go to some of the most exploited countries in the world, and they steal a lot of land, or they underpay for land, or they evict people from land. And this pushes indigenous communities out of their ancestral homelands. This displaces people that might have been able to survive from, for example, subsistence farming, which is fairly sustainable, and pushes them into slums where they're forced to work in very low-paid jobs so that they can buy food. In the past, they grew their own food, and now they have to buy it, which also decreases, the nutritional value of what they eat and causes all kinds of health issues. So you have this very, very, very profound connection between transnational corporations, for example, in oil or in farming or different areas, indigenous rights, land rights, urban poverty, malnutrition, hunger, and a whole group of other issues. And our job really is to try and connect the dots between these things and find out how can we bring these people together in dialogue so they see the interconnectedness of their struggles, and they find ways to mobilize effectively against them as a unit that's greater than the sum of its parts.
Great, yeah. And how does the whole language issue then, obviously we're helping with translation, what is the benefit to you of having these articles translated, if that's not too obvious a question?
It's critical, and it can never be overstated. One of the big challenges, if you go to the United Nations or you go to any of the big international institutions, and you enter any of the meeting rooms, around the meeting rooms they'll have these boxes of interpreters. In the case of the European Union, there's always at least 20 whatever boxes. I think there are 28 official languages, maybe fewer, but anyway, there's a large number of official languages, and there's always simultaneous interpretation. Any document that's published is immediately made available in all of the languages of the members of that organization, and it's an essential tool for allowing those institutions to function, because without that they wouldn't be able to communicate their shared ideas or to develop their shared ideas. Now, in those contexts, there is a tremendous budget that's available, that's mobilized by states to make that possible. In our case, with the kind of work we do, we don't have those resources. And so having the ability to make some of the ideas that we talk about, some of the ideas that we share, available in 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, even 15 languages within a matter of a few weeks, that's absolutely precious and irreplaceable. And I would go as far as saying that our work would be absolutely impossible without it. What good is an ambitious agenda of building dialogue among the peoples of the global north and global south if we can't actually, build the threads that allow them to communicate with each other? And so working with you has been immensely invaluable to the work, and a huge support to our mission.
Because I can remember at the beginning that you were slightly cautious about whether we would be able to support the work that you do. I think you said that to me. So hopefully now your mind has been changed a little bit by the waves of translations coming in from our teams, and this is really helping you disseminate your messages and, as you say, foster that dialogue.
It's immensely impressive what you've built. Actually, I mean, it looks like the organization really works like clockwork. I think we have a lot to learn from you also, just structurally and logistically about the way you coordinate these things, because really it is impressive and it's a slick machine. So congratulations to you.
Great.
It's really a pleasure to work with you.
And you too, Pavel. So thanks very much for making the time today and for sharing
Pleasure.
your views with us.
Thanks for having me on.